All right, everybody. Welcome to the Bacon, Bibles, and Barbells Podcast. I'm Justin Johnson. I'm joined by Coach Bill, as usual. We're here to talk about 10 supplements that might be harming you or might not, depending. Some of these we're going to basically recommend you take under certain circumstances and use carefully. And other things we're probably just going to blanket say, like, you probably don't want to touch that because it's probably not good. But they're all things that are readily available, that are easy to get a hold of, that a lot of people are saying, take all you want or don't worry about it, or that a lot of people just do habitually take, in our opinion, to excess at times. And there should be some further consideration before taking certain kinds of supplements. Vitamin C is not on the list. So as far as our training and everything's going, I just started a strength block a couple weeks ago. I'm eating maintenance and weight's been maintaining in the high 250s. No problem there. Just kind of feeling kind of beat up though. Usually around this time of year, I take a month off in August. So I'm considering actually doing that a little early because I just keep getting like little tweaks in the gym very frequently. And I'm having like just trouble sleeping, feeling very weak. And historically, what I've done is taken a month off. I'll do a lot of walking and maybe like light upper body work, but that's about it. And last week I skipped it. I only did 2 weeks off and then went right back to heavy training. And so it might have caught up with me. I'm not sure. So I'm deciding if I want to actually turn that into like 6 weeks and start early. So we'll see soon. But right now I'm kind of like, no, I'm not sure what I want to do. I was looking forward to pushing some strength numbers for a month and then taking some time off and then coming back hard. But it's my body might be telling me like it's about time because I'm showing all the signs historically that I need to step away for a minute just because of how hard intensely I normally train during the year. It's just not sustainable forever. So kind of figuring that out. Like today I did something to my knee when I was deadlifting, which is really weird. Like knee injuries during deadlifting are very rare. And I had to like basically call the workout there. I had a bunch of other stuff programmed. I tried a little bit of everything and everything was bothering it. It was like a sharp pain inside the knee, like could be meniscus. I don't know. It's an unusual, it's not even a pain that I've dealt with before. So, had to just call it there and go for a walk. So, we'll see. Just figuring it out. So, how about you, Bill?
I don't think I've been in the gym for a week and a half, probably. Just had a lot of sort of logistical stuff with life going on. Diet is really minimal. When I'm stressed, I tend to undereat, probably like one meal a day. I'll supplement with protein throughout the day as I think about it. But otherwise, I'll probably do something similar. I'll probably just use this as an extended deload so I can get some other activities in. I want to do a long hike to Jack's River. I did some kayaking. I'm going to do some fly fishing, some things like that just while I maintain. No real muscle loss to speak of. Everything's high protein, still very high activity. I'm doing a good bit more jiu-jitsu. I was training for a little in-house tournament we had and managed to secure the victory there. So that was great. But otherwise, usually summer is...
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And it was exciting. The summer is usually the time where I try to fit in most of my other sort of normal human activities. And so weightlifting takes a little bit of a backseat. Not totally. I mean, I'll still be in the gym a couple times a week and doing maintenance as needed. But usually this is the time I use for other physical activities that I've sort of built my strength and stuff and conditioning for throughout the remainder of the year. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure usually I kind of back off entirely and I just try to stay moving when I do this. So we'll see. I don't usually do it for clients. It's pretty rare, but part of it is I think just managing some of the intensity that I train with. And I'm always running experiments too. And I think that does take a toll as far as like what I'm doing with my programming and diet and things like that. So it's probably a combination of all those things that, and then just business has been crazy this year. And so that's also like part of it. It's probably taken a toll on some things. And part of periodization is knowing when to back off. And in this case, like I have to move a little bit or I'll get, your back gets achy and you get stiff and sore. So I'm not going to stop moving. I'll probably walk a lot more. And like I said, I'll probably do some light upper body stuff. But basically avoid spine loading and anything that's actually heavy, which again is a bummer because I was looking forward to doing some heavy work. But usually when I come back from this, I'm just this kind of thing. I'm more motivated. I'm ready to go. My body's just more ready for strength right now. Everything just feels heavy. And so, so we'll figure it out. Oh, I think I lost Bill for a minute, so we'll have to edit this. Just hold on a minute, everybody. We'll have to cut this out. All right. Well, Bill just said he lost power, so all right, cool. So let's just continue the podcast. I was really looking forward to Bill's input on this one, but we'll just continue anyway, and hopefully maybe he can join us partway through. We'll see. But yeah, he just lost power in his house, so he is unable to meet with us at the moment. So we're going to talk about 10 supplements that might be causing harm. Now, these aren't things that you should never take. These are just things that when you take, you should be cautious of taking them and cautious of why you're taking them, how long you're taking them for, and the dosages. There are very few substances that are like bad in the supplement world in the sense that like you can never take them. It's mostly just that there are things that you have to be very cautious of, which is true of most supplements except for like vitamin C and creatine. But there are certain things that are commonly used, and you've seen internet ads for all of these. You've probably used most of them in the past. And so we're just trying to bring to light some potential things that they could be causing harm. And the other thing is some of these are masking other potential issues that you should be aware of and looking to treat root cause rather than masking symptoms. So on top of the list, in fact, the first few are basically ones that are meant to often used to help people with just feeling better and things like that in general, or, I don't want to say reverse depression, but we could say maybe treat depression in some manner. And so top of the list is lion's mane. Lion's mane is it's a mushroom, and most lion's mane products that you might get on the internet or in stores don't really have enough to do much of anything. But in the case that you do get a pure product that has enough to do something, realize that it's basically behaving like an SSRI, a weak SSRI, but an SSRI that actually has a fairly substantial side effect profile. And with clients that I've worked with, very few times has it really been helpful. Not that I've pretty much ever told someone to take. I think I've told someone to take it once or twice for a very short duration to get through a tough week, but that's about it. I don't believe it should be used long term. It is hepatotoxic. It causes stress on the liver and kidneys, by the way. It's not huge, but over a long time, it can definitely add up. And so there's some general organ stress that you need to be aware of. But ultimately what it's doing is it's typically raising serotonin, which does mask certain feelings that you may have that you don't want, but it also masks the good with the bad in most cases, and can result in other things because of its interplay with the dopaminergic system and cause things like sexual dysfunction. It can cause long-term depression, and whatever is causing the depression goes untreated, which in many cases for Americans is going to be diet and lifestyle related more than anything else. So what we're looking for here is probably, if you want to use it, give it a try. You don't want to use it for more than a week or two. I've had guys develop complete erectile dysfunction in a couple of cases just from being on it for a month or two. And then they stop taking it, and then a week or two later, everything's back to normal. So that is how serious the side effects can become. Along those lines is going to be ashwagandha. Basically works pretty much the same way, similar type of Caution here is if you use it for a short duration, no more than a week or two at a time, and don't become reliant on it, and it can cause other similar types of issues. It's basically masking feelings that you're receiving, just like lion's mane. And also, St. John's wort is going to be number 3. That one's going to be I'll just wrap all these into one. They're basically behaving like SSRIs, in their effect for the most part. Now, what's really going under the hood, I don't think that we're 100% clear on, because we're still figuring out what SSRIs do. They don't all work the way that we thought that they did when they're invented, and we're still learning more about what they do to the body, including to the serotonin systems. So it's not a free ride just because it's natural. It's not a free ride just because it comes from a plant. It doesn't mean that it's beneficial for you. There are plants out there that'll kill you. So just because this is from a plant, doesn't kill you immediately, doesn't mean that long-term use is okay. You still have to be cautious. You still have to be careful. And with these, my general guidance is just avoid them most of the time. And if you want to try something, my recommendation would be try lion's mane for a short duration if you really, really need it. But it should be looked at as what it is, a crutch. And a crutch is something that you only use for a short amount of time until you can deal with the issue, whatever that issue may be. So that's the caution that I urge anyone who's considering using these or who has used them. I have seen claims online. I've seen ads for all these mushroom-derived teas and pills and powders and everything else. And ultimately what they're basically selling is an over-the-counter SSRI. And it's really not much more complicated than that. People will claim that it balanced their hormones or optimized their hormones or whatever buzzword you want to use. But realistically, that's not what's happening. In fact, it usually has a deleterious effect on your hormones to use these for very long, because cranking up the serotonin, cranking up serotonin usually comes at the expense of dopamine. And what you're going to wind up with is basically a body that is no longer actually optimized for natural production of sex hormones, which is what people are implying when they talk about hormones. And by the way, nobody who we've ever seen make such a claim that it balanced their hormones or fixed everything, I've never seen any of those people even claim that they had done blood work to establish that they had a bad baseline or a good baseline and that it returned to something better. I've never seen that from anybody. Like, most people making these claims have never actually had their hormones checked and don't even know how these hormones work, behave, or function in the body. Someday we'll do a breakdown on that. I've done other talks in other spaces, and so we'll kind of break down what the various sex hormones do in men and women, because they actually do different things in men and women psychologically. But that aside, this is not going to fix your hormones. Lion's mane, ashwagandha, St. John's wort, that's not what they do. That's not how they work. They just kind of make you feel a little bit better when you're in a crisis, because they're basically dulling feelings, but they're not going to make you like, they don't create long-term sustainable joy and happiness and fulfillment. That comes from a well-ordered life that is surrendered to Christ, and that is, living responsibly in general as it pertains to your diet, lifestyle, activity levels, and things like that. And are you doing engaging and fulfilling work and doing what you're called to do? That's where joy and happiness come from, and fulfillment. It does not come from lion's mane, ashwagandha, or St. John's wort. So in general, I'm not usually much of a fan of these. I do keep lion's mane around. I've used it a couple times. Honestly, I don't really notice anything because it's mostly been an experiment for me. Those of you that do experience a positive effect from it, that's cool. Just, I recommend don't use it for very long for your health. The next two are somewhat related, but they work on different systems, so we'll tackle them separately. Tylenol and ibuprofen. So Tylenol is basically the receptor that Tylenol binds to block basically the sensation of pain, if you will, or the perception of pain, is problematic because it never unbinds from it. It binds to that receptor and stays for life. And that is why it is really tough on the liver, because your liver has to not just break down the Tylenol, it has to break down the receptor, because eventually it will become, I don't want to say dislodged, but the receptor more or less dies, because receptors don't live forever. And the next thing you know, you've got a receptor and a Tylenol molecule floating around, or acetaminophen, and your liver has to break this down. And so that's why it is extra liver stress. And long-term use can cause damage or harm to the liver, among certain other systems, but it really is, in my opinion, a problematic drug. And I actually don't like using it for pain management anyway because of this factor. It's basically killing receptors, and that's not something that you really want to do in the body, besides the liver stress. In my opinion, almost every commonly used pain drug is going to be safer to use. I realize that some people can't take NSAIDs for various reasons due to health concerns, or they're not responders to it. So if you got to use it, you got to use it. It's not going to kill you, but it can mess with you long term. It's definitely something I would never recommend using on a daily basis or anything like that for pain management. Just like the next one, which is ibuprofen, which does not cause the toxicity to the liver. We're not as concerned about that. But what it does is it changes inflammation markers in the body. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, an NSAID. And the problem with this is it causes kidney, I don't want to say damage. It can cause damage over the long term, but we'll just say kidney stress. And the big issue with causing stress on the kidneys is you can get kidney injury, which is temporary, which then leads to kidney damage. And kidney damage is generally irreparable. You generally can't heal from real kidney damage. Your heart and your kidney are two organs that just in general, they don't really repair themselves very well. They can recover from certain kinds of injuries and things like that, but they're not like the liver where it can like actually regenerate. Like you can lose most of your liver and it will regrow and be fine. The kidney is not that way. You damage it, it stays damaged for life. That's why if you ever look at average like kidney health and function over a lifetime, like EGFR scores, over a lifetime, the expected score of a kidney declines because when you're born, you have perfect kidneys, or you usually would, and they just wear out over time. And anything that causes damage or extra strain to them is going to have this kind of effect. Now, I have heard of people anecdotally that took ibuprofen on a daily basis winding up with kidney cancer. It has happened. I don't know if there are any like really well-designed studies to establish a serious causal link here, but it does seem like it is logical and reasonable that something like that could happen due to chronic kidney stress. It's not acute if you're taking it every day. The other thing that ibuprofen does that's problematic is it does seem to remodel the gut, because your gut sort of ultimately becomes dependent on it, and also your body's ability to manage inflammation becomes dependent on it. And so you kind of end up in this circle where if you stop taking it, you get it because you're managing, say, knee pain or something like that. Well, if you stop taking it, then the knee pain returns. But you might not have had any knee pain at that baseline. It's just that you've taken it so many times over and over again. Your body has essentially formed a dependency on it. And usually digestion goes downhill and other things like that. So ibuprofen, it's my first line of defense for like a headache or something like that, or minor injury, something that causes pain and basic pain management, but not something that I believe pretty much anybody should be taking on a consistent long-term basis because of those reasons. The others are going to be some vitamins. So vitamin A, which is, a retinoid. Vitamin A is something that you should be. Now, vitamin A is often used for skin health and things like that, of keeping skin clear and that sort of thing. And it's often in beauty products and applied topically. And it can be very beneficial for those reasons. But what you have to be careful of is developing sunburn from it, because it does reduce your body's ability to adapt to sunlight. And this is particularly true if you're someone who lives in a place where there's a lot of exposure to sun, particularly if you live in the South and in the summer it's really hot. So not always bad to take. By the way, taking it orally has practically nothing for your skin unless you're super deficient. But as long as you're eating a decent diet, that shouldn't be a problem. So if it's in a topical product that you're using regularly, that's fine. Just be aware that you may have to limit your exposure to the sun in that particular part of your body, just because you are making yourself more vulnerable to things like to getting a sunburn, which chronic, sunburns increase your risk of skin cancer. Another one would be vitamin D. You can overdo vitamin D. It's fairly rare, but it does happen and it can happen. Signs of vitamin D, shall we say overdose, would be things like just feeling tense and psyched out, almost like a stimulant, like if you had too much caffeine or something along those lines, rapid heartbeat, increased blood pressure, and those sorts of things. Some people can tolerate more than others, but in general, you just don't need that much to be okay. Do your blood work, find out. And the other thing that vitamin D does when you supplement with it is it depletes K2. I've said this before, so some of you guys are going to remember this. It does deplete K2, and so what you want to do is make sure that you're supplementing K2, because when you're low on K2, your risk for developing plaque of the arteries goes up. And so you don't want to be supplementing one thing for your health and then causing a problem elsewhere. So always supplement K2 with your vitamin D, particularly the MK7 formulation. There's, I think MK3 is the more common, but MK7 is what you actually want to be taking. This also brings me to vitamin E. Now, vitamin E is also used for like general skin care and things like that. It's not easy to overdose on it, but there are certain things that there's such a thing as vitamin E toxicity, and it can cause certain types of health complications and things like that. Usually, we're talking about like acute things that are digestive related. So like it could cause digestive issues, but you can get like muscle weakness, fatigue, and like even like nausea and stuff like that. You generally don't want to exceed a gram a day, specifically with vitamin E. And most people, again, I don't think really need it. It's kind of, I think, a little bit oversold. I think it's most useful topically if you're trying to heal from a wound or a sunburn. Outside of that, I just don't see it to be particularly useful for most people who are just looking to like make their skin look better. Honestly, the best way you can do that is generally going to be a ton of red light exposure. That's going to have a greater effect because it's actually hydrating the cells in your skin and not just trying to force oils on top of them, which, by the way, when you apply oil to your skin, it just sits on your skin. It doesn't actually moisturize the cells in your skin. It just sits in and around the skin and sort of does its thing. So the others that we'll get to are going to be, we have two more. Calcium. A lot of people supplement with calcium, and this can be problematic because a lot of people think that they're supplementing with calcium, especially women, to help with their bone health. However, if you're already eating a decent diet, you're getting plenty of calcium. You don't need to get any more. So like it doesn't take that much to get enough. If you're eating just generally healthy, you're eating your vegetables, you're eating your meats, things like that, you should be getting enough that supplementation is just not necessary. And adding extra doesn't actually make you build more bone mass. It only helps if you're someone that's eating a diet that's severely deficient, which again is not that prevalent of a problem for most of us, especially if you have any regular consumption of dairy, then that's adding quite a bit. So it wouldn't usually be something I'd worry about, but what it can lead to that's very problematic are things like cramps, increased blood pressure, and other things like that, which can be very serious, of course, and also can cause digestive issues and not just cramps of the muscles, but like cramps in your guts and other things like that. I don't recommend almost anybody supplement with it, and unless it's been demonstrated that you have an absorption issue or you can't eat things that have adequate calcium, and you've actually like done some work to determine that, yes, I'm actually deficient on calcium, which is tough to measure because like most of these minerals, yes, it is in your blood and you can do blood tests, but that doesn't actually tell you that much about what's going on in target tissues. And one thing to keep in mind about calcium is all the electrolytes have various functions they play in the nervous system. And calcium and magnesium have sort of opposite roles in the nervous system. Calcium is implicated in the tensing of muscle fibers, and magnesium is implicated in the release of muscle fibers, in the relaxation of muscle fibers. This is why it can lead to cramping, because you get excessive contractile signaling in the muscles just from the presence of calcium, or shall we say overpresence, which isn't really a word, but that is sort of the case. So the next one is going to be caffeine. Now, caffeine is not bad. Caffeine's actually one of the better studied like supplements out there, substances or whatever you want to call it. And it's actually been demonstrated that it can help with dementia. I wouldn't say treat dementia, but it seems like it does help to some degree with reducing dementia risk. It seems like it helps with cardiovascular risk factors and a whole bunch of other things, probably from the increased blood flow. It would be my guess. It can even be used to treat erectile dysfunction and other similar issues with men and women. However, it's really easy to overdo, especially when we live in a world that is full of energy drinks and coffee is so readily available. It can very, very easily be overdone and done at the wrong times, which is actually probably the most important factor here. So I would define the wrong times as the times that you want to avoid caffeine would be 2 hours after you wake up, all the way through till about, I would say 6 hours, but generally more ideally about 5 hours before you, or 8 hours before you go to bed. So for most of us, that's going to be like avoid it after 2 p.m. And don't start using it until like 8 a.m. or something like that. And here are the reasons why. It all has to do with sleep management and things like that. So during the first 2 hours of the day, the hormones that your body was using to help you stay asleep are still present when you wake up. Calcium keeps your body from clearing these, which is why you can tend to get a crash, because calcium masks them. They're still in blood circulation, just not able to do what their normal function would be of making you drowsy. When the calcium clears out, those are still present and you get that crash. Then you feel like you need to keep hitting the caffeine over and over and over again. And the cycle can repeat itself all throughout the day because you keep getting re-exposed to these hormones. And then as far as the afternoon goes, you just don't want calcium in your system when you go to bed. And it takes several hours to clear. Some of us, it clears faster than others, but you don't want to be sleeping under the influence of calcium, just like you don't want to be sleeping under the influence of many things, to be honest. And calcium is definitely one of them. You don't want increased levels of adrenaline or epinephrine in your body, which is one of the things that caffeine's doing. And so like, if you like the taste of coffee, which I do, and I do this, I mostly drink decaf. And so like, I like the taste of coffee. There are actually chemicals in coffee that are very beneficial besides caffeine. And I don't feel good on using hardly any caffeine at all. So I keep it very intermittent. I don't use it on a daily basis, but I like drinking coffee. And so I can drink that anytime. I can drink it after dinner. It doesn't matter. And so finding a good decaffeinated, coffee choice can actually be a very good option that's practical for a lot of people because you're used to drinking it and it is nice and it's hydration and it's good for you. So I'm not saying avoid coffee altogether, but you might want to try a decaf coffee if you're someone that just likes to drink a lot of coffee. The other thing that caffeine can do is it can cause headaches, but it can also form a very strong chemical dependency where you'll get a headache if you don't use it, or you just feel horribly, like debilitatingly lethargic if you're not using it. So what I would say is if you're at a point where if you skip it, you have a horrible day and you just feel awful, then it's probably at a point where it might be best to back off and then reassess and see what part in your life that caffeine may play. But it probably shouldn't be as prominent as it was before. I went through this myself when I was in my mid-20s, and I was just realizing that regular consumption of caffeine made me feel tense, which it does for a lot of people that you just don't realize it anymore because you kind of get used to it. I realized that about myself and just didn't like the way I felt on it as much. And when I stopped drinking coffee for a while, I was getting headaches. I felt horribly lethargic. So actually even had a chemical dependency on it, which I'm not going to sit here and say all chemical dependencies are something you have to avoid. But in general, I think that's something we want to avoid. I think we should be able to be functional without having morning coffee. That's just an opinion, but I do think it's best for our health if we're not dependent on those types of things. And so what I'll just say is caffeine's good for you, but it's bad for you if used wrongly, just like many of these things. In fact, pretty much all the things I listed, only a couple of them would I say, like, you probably just don't ever want to do this. But all of them can be done safely. Their risk profile is very, very low. They're generally quite safe, often used without any particular deleterious effects on people. And so that's just something to sort of keep in mind, that like, I'm not saying never ever use these, but I'm saying maybe consider using them differently or using them less. So I hope that was helpful to everybody. Keep an eye out. I think in the future, we're going to do some more talk on nicotine because I've been getting more questions from people about how to actually implement it and use it. So instead of talking as much about the theoretical, maybe we'll talk more about the application of how we integrate nicotine successfully into a lifestyle, and it's in, how it's beneficial, and also some of the variables to think through as you do so. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. And until next time, gains and grace.